Hello everybody and welcome to another product review video. And this week, I'm going to move Mr. Flag Guy out of the way here for just a moment. This week we're going to talk about Scale 75. Scale 75 Inktensity set. So this is a set you can get from Scale 75. I got mine from Michigan Toy Soldier. I'll include a link down below to where I got it. So if you decide you want to look into these, you can. There aren't a lot of places in the U.S., unfortunately, where you can get Scale 75, but Michigan Toy Soldier is one of them, and they did ship this along quite quickly. Okay, so this is the Scale 75 Inktensity set. It's, as the name would imply, all inks, so none of these are actually paint in the traditional sense of the word. They're all acrylic inks. What you get in the set is 8 inks. You've got black, violet, blue, wood, chestnut, which are sound the same, but if you look, they are different. One is more of like a sepia. One is more akin to a sepia. Let's put it in Citadel terms. One is more akin to a sepia. One is more akin to an Agrax. There you go. How about that? So wood and chestnut. You've got a green, a red, and a yellow. Also, so aside from the fact that one of them is called Intense Wood, because they're all called Intense, which is maybe the funniest name for a paint probably ever. These I've had them now for about a month. I've had some good usage of them, and I really I like them, although there are a couple challenges to them. So I'm going to kind of, as usual, take you through using them. You'll notice we've got our old friend from the last hobby cheating video here, Mr. Banner Guy. We've also got the Canon from the last product review here, and I went ahead and sprayed like all the areas I want to be wood, kind of a gray, because the colors, I'll tell you right now, the colors I like the best out of this, and the inks that I think are the most useful, right at the top, I'll share this with you, are the black, because this is a great black ink for working with steel and with metal, like aluminum or any kind of iron-based color. And then the wood and the chestnut, because this, especially the wood, but you can use this for good highlights. This is the most accurate wood grain color I have ever used. And it's funny because I used it on a couple figs, and people in all of them that I posted, either on like Twitter or wherever, people are like, wow, the wood color looks good. And it's not, I didn't really do anything except dry brush under it some lighter gray colors, and then basically just hit it with that wood, and then one other step, and I'll get to it when we get there. As always with product reviews, I'm going to show them in use as well. But let me just talk about them for a moment in general usage. They are, as they would imply, inks. So I'm going to kind of move these to the side real quick. And we're going to scoot in the palette so that way you can see kind of what they look like when you drop them in there. So we're going to move we're going to move the palette into frame there. I need to re-wet my wet palette, or stop letting it hang over the edge so it can get dry. That would probably be smart. Okay, anyway, not relevant for right now. So let's just take the black, for example. You can see you get, pretty much like ink. That's exactly what you'd think out of an ink. It's very thin normally. These aren't paint. They don't work like paint. To give it the old thumb test there, you can see that's not changing the color a whole lot, right? I've got several different colors on my thumb. It's quite thin. And that's exactly why I like them. They are the perfect consistency for inks. Some inks I have found don't have enough medium. Some inks I found are a different sort of consistency. The Scale 75 inks are really good. They're extremely rich with medium, but they're also extremely rich with pigment. And so because of that, you get a really nice flow out of them, and they're easy to thin. You can use them with, a thinner medium, a glazed medium. You can just thin them down with water. All of that. and they will more or less retain their consistency. They don't start getting spotty or runny or anything like that. So I've used them quite a bit. Let's actually put this black to use. So for that, we're going to bring Mr. Cannon back in here. And so there we go. There's our cannon. I'm just going to get a healthy dose of that black on there. And what I'm going to do is just kind of run it over some of the ridges here and show you how intense, how ink tense it is if you just kind of slapdash it directly on. Okay? And so you can see that's about the coverage you get out of it, which is what you would want. Now at the same time, I can sort of clean off my my brush some, thin it down, and then I could come back in and smooth that quite easily, and it will, you know, react with the water pretty well, and it'll kind of like smooth out fairly nicely. And you get something like that. Okay. So I like the black is especially nice. One note that I will have on this, and you're going to see it especially when we get to the wood, which is actually one of the ones I'm going to show next. I'm not going to do all 8 of these because this product review will be 20 hours long if I do all 8. But I definitely want to show the wood. That's why I've got this area that's supposed to be wood on the cannon primed up, because as I said, it is one of my favorites. I've been using the black quite a bit to do the lowlights on my steel. And what's interesting about it that's very beneficial when it comes to the black is that it's extremely glossy. When this dries, it stays very glossy. Okay, Scale 75's paints in general are known for their matte quality, whereas for whatever reason, the Inktensity set is just unbelievably glossy. Like, it really dries to a high gloss. So if that's something you like, well, hey, guess what? These are going to work well for you. If you're afraid of the gloss, as I generally am, it means that you just need to be aware of it and, you know, sort of react appropriately. That is to say, what I've been doing for my wood is generally dry brushing things. Like, I start with a gray, I dry brush on a white or something of that nature, and then I hit it with the intense wood. That's right. You know, somebody pull that sound clip out. I hit it with the intense wood, and then I go back over it with Agrax. And I find that, one, knocks the shine right out of it, because Agrax is a very, like, Agrax Earthshade is by its nature a very dark wash that has absolutely no reflectivity to it whatsoever. But also I found that the two together produce a really nice wood grain with really not much else work. So if you just have the undershading of like some gray and some white or cream or ivory or something in that nature, it gives you a pretty effective wood tone, like more or less for free. So it's pretty great. So there we go. That's kind of the wood. I'm just going to let that dry for a second because, well, I want you to be able to see what it looks like when it's dry. So we're going to move Mr. Cannon off to the side there while he dries. So they're, like I said, they do dry to a very high shine, which can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. I will also say that the other big use of them is you can use them both to highlight on a color, because they are very intense, they are bright. They're not lying to you about the brightness or the intensity of this color. So I'm going to get out some red here. One down note that I'll mention when I go to the red is that both the red and the yellow, in mine and the ones that I got, the pigment had like, some of the pigment had dried and got all caught up at the top here in the, like in the tip. So I had to like pull the top off, pull the pigment out with like a stick, and then mix it in there, and you can hear both of those I now have like my, you know, my mix up BBs in to get that break in, to break up the pigment. So that was mine with them. It only happened with the red and the yellow. None of the other colors did that. So I have no idea why, but just be aware if you get the set to be careful with your red and your yellow. So you can also use it to brighten colors up. You can see that's what the red looks like on my thumb. It is a fairly orangey red, but if I just run it over kind of the parts of the red I want to have a nice richer tone, it will take those red tones and just kind of brighten them up. So for people doing like blood angels, or I don't know, so who else? What else wants an intense red? Like blood letters, you know, corn stuff. If you're interested in having like a really, really intense red in your figs, this is actually a pretty good thing to either kind of run over on your highlights. If you had like white underneath it, whoa. If you had white underneath it and then you ran this over, you would get a really, really, really nice white red tone, much like I did in sort of the hobby cheating with bright reds. You could really get that to be a very nice color. You can also mix these with other acrylic paints because they are acrylic inks and they will mix up without an issue. And I have found that they do tincture colors very nicely. They will add a richness to the tone. Okay, so you can see here now how this red has a slightly orange tint to it. It's a little more intense. Let's see if I can get him in frame. There we go. You can see here versus say over here where I didn't hit it. The tone's really nice. It's got a slight orange hue to it. It's good. I do think I like the red a lot. You can also just run it over an existing thing, and it's interesting what it will do when we're not talking about paint. So for example, if I wanted to make like his shirt red or something like that, when you're just working with like zenithal, obviously this is, you know, ink is fairly transparent. All of this is airbrushable, and I have blown some of this through my airbrush. I actually rather like it through the airbrush. It's pretty great for undershading and to lay color over stuff. And that's actually how I think the Inktense Red works the best. If you ever try to like put this over something directly as I'm doing here, that is to say I didn't paint anything first, right? I just literally jumped in and I'm throwing this directly onto my zenithal highlight. You know, it's obviously it's ink, it's fairly thin. That being said, with a couple of coats, you can get a rather rich red tone out of it, and if you've got some good undershading down, you can get it to turn red. We're gonna let him dry now, so because that'll take a little while. And let's go back to the wood. Okay, so let's take a look at our wood tone and how that came out. So you can see here, you can really see with just like the gray undershading how nice that came out. Like when you look at that, that's pretty good wood grain. Like let me make sure that stays in focus, but there you go. It really, I really love the richness of that tone. To me, that really has the look of, you know, sort of treated wood. Now, if you don't do something to knock the shine out, like I can see it here in reality. I don't know how much that shine is coming through. You can see it when I turn a little there. It reflects maybe, you know, a little more than it should. But if you don't do anything to knock that shine out, you're going to get varnished wood. That'll end up being the look. Which, if that's what you're going for, that's fine. Like if you want to do a nice table in a miniature diorama, this would be perfect without any kind of knocking the shine out. If you don't want to further alter the color, if you like that, I would recommend just some matte varnish over the top to really just, you know, get it back down to normal. But you can see then, if I hold that up to the top, again, there's what it was originally, and there's what it looks like now. I really just like the way it plays with gray and black undershading. It especially suits a sort of zenithal highlighting style. So that's really cool. You can also use it, you can use like the intense chestnut and the intense wood to also do like dirt effects, things you would normally use sepia or agrax for. So like if, you know, I wanted to have some rust or weathering on the cannon, on the metal, I could put that, let's see, where would, maybe back here on the barrel. There you go. That'll show up nice. You can certainly get away with that here as well, right? So if I wanted a little bit of that in there on the joints, you can see how that comes out. You know, I think probably, so that's the wood tone, and we'll do some sepia tone, or the chestnut over here. Honestly, they're very close. The chestnut is just like a little more red tone. I don't know if you'll even be able to really see the difference, but there compared to there. So they're very close. Honestly, I like the intense wood. It's never in a video has that been said that many times. But all in all, let's bring back in our guy here. You can see when you run these inks directly over, you really don't get, superb coverage on like one coat as you would expect from an ink. Again, they're not paints. But if you give it a couple coats, you can get it to turn, a pretty solid red. As I said, the real use for this is more shooting it through an airbrush, or layering over an existing color. That's where you can really use it to brighten up and bring life, bring sort of a vibrancy to your tones. That's where I think the red shines. The yellow you can run directly over white, and I think that is actually a way to get a good clean yellow. I don't have anything primed, specifically pure white, but we'll go ahead and show you the chestnut over this. So we'll just do his pants real quick here in the chestnut. And you notice I'm being pretty messy with it, because I'm just letting it actually run kind of heavy. That way I get sort of that it does gather in the recesses some. I'm actually kind of cheating here and using it like that. So you can see that. Now obviously it's wet right now, so it's really shiny. It will dry a little more matte. Going back to the Canon, you can see how that ink dried on there. Okay. So it is strong. It is. They're not lying when they say when they say Inktensity. They're not kidding. The inks are very strong for inks. So, what are my final thoughts on the Inktensity set from Scale 75? Are they worth it? I believe the set from Michigan Toy Soldier is about $37.99, maybe $38 for the set of 8 paints. Okay, so the paints are a little less than $5 a piece. Pretty comparable with, say, Games Workshop. A little more expensive than, say, your Vallejo or anything like that. Are they worth it? It depends on how you like to paint. If you're looking for an interesting set of inks, if you like undershading, these are some of the better inks that I've used. I've got a couple different kinds, and eventually I'll make my way through all of them in product reviews. They are great for adding some more vibrancy to your existing tones. They're good to use if you need like a really rich targeted wash. If you want to do like the thing of a wash, but you need to really create strong contrast, say like in some deep feathers or fur, they can be very useful there. In the end, the red and the yellow are probably the most suspect. They're the hardest to get use out of without an airbrush. You can take the yellow over basically straight white and get a nice clean yellow, but there's lots of, you can run almost any yellow over a clean white and get that. So these two I think are the weakest in the set. The green is quite vibrant. As I said, the 2 brown colors and the black are the standouts. They are great for doing exactly what you would expect. Tinting, stone, doing leather pants or boots, creating a wood tone, a natural wood grain on things, all that sort of thing. The blue and the violet are both rather dark, and so that kind of does restrict what you can do with them. To me, I have found they're best used in that sort of pseudo wash fashion, because they lack the brightness of these 3. They're harder to just mix in and add more vibrancy to your other existing paints, or to use them as a highlight or anything. But overall, the Scale 75 ink set is good. I'm happy with the investment. I wasn't super thrilled to see the pigment screw up in these 2. Given the cost ratio to how often they're used, I think they're a solid B+. So if you're looking for a good set of inks, if you like using a lot of undershading and things like that, if you really like pushing the contrast on your models, this can be an excellent way to do it without needing to worry about taking your paints and thinning them way down with a lot of mediums. So there you go. Hope you enjoy that product review. As I said, I'll include a link down to the Michigan Toy Soldiers, so if you're interested in picking these up, you can give them a shot. We can see how that wood dry, or the chestnut dried for his pants there, and you can see how shiny that is, right? He's got shiny pants. But if we hit that with some Agrax, that would go away, and we'd be just fine. So, there you go. Hope you enjoy, and as always, we'll see you next time.